Keep Walters in mind if you're looking for a place to book a private event in D.C. Visit waltersdc.com/private events for more information.
A massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, especially these days. 8 different settings, adjustable intensity, plus it's heated, and it just feels so good. Yes, a massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, but when it can come with a car, suddenly it seems quite practical. The all-new 2025 Volkswagen Tiguan, packed with premium features like available massaging front seats, it only feels extravagant.
Duran into the wind of the pitch. Bell swings. It's a slow ground ball left side. Charging in, third baseman Lewis has it, has time, and the throw to first, and the game is over. A very quick 1-2-3 inning for Johan Duran to earn his 16th save in 18 tries, and the Nats are in fact blanked for a second straight game.
And welcome to Nats Chat, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who was at Target Field in Minneapolis. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. The Nats now have not scored a run since a 3-run six in their 6-1 win over the Cincinnati Reds at Nationals Park, all the way back on this past Tuesday evening. The Nats on Friday night suffered a second consecutive shutout loss, a 1-0 loss at the Minnesota Twins in Game 1 of a 3-game series, which was the Nats' 9th shutout loss in this regular season, in which the Nats now are 41-62. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Window Nation. Don't miss Window Nation's biggest deal of the year. The deadline to get 50% off all window styles is the same as the MLB trade deadline this Thursday, July 31st. You can find us on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. Odd outing for Nats starting pitcher MacKenzie Gore. We'll get to that. The Twins starting pitcher on Friday night was the immortal Zebby Matthews. He tossed 6 scoreless innings with 7 strikeouts versus no walks. Zebby Matthews, he came into this game with an ERA of 6.26 over 5 major league starts this regular season. But Mark, to update a stat that I brought up on the last installment of the podcast, 9 of the Nats' 62 losses now have been shutout losses. And yet what also is true is that the Nats have scored at least 10 runs in 10 of the team's 41 wins. So in 19 of the Nats' 103 games, in nearly 1 out of every 5 games, the team has either been shut out or scored at least 10 runs. We have talked about the feast or famine nature of this Nats offense this season, but man, that is something.
It is wild. Maybe it's appropriate that they were shut out, that we saw the famine part of that equation tonight, because Zebby Matthews sounds like an 1840s California gold prospector who's hoping to strike it rich, and he struck it rich in this game, and the Nats got nothing but sand when they went fishing for gold. I mean, with all due respect to Mr. Matthews, who perhaps pitched the game of his life, for all we know, the lack of patience, the lack of, I mean, they didn't hit a ball out of the infield until 2 outs in the 4th. They took 1 at bat with a runner in scoring position through the first 7 innings of the game. They finally had another one in the 8th. There just was nothing there. And you know, they had the game against Chase Burns earlier in the week where they didn't do much early on and they figured him out along the way. And we talked about, wow, what a great job finally making some adjustments. Since then, there have been none of that. Shut out on Wednesday by the Reds, shut out again on Friday. And you know, I don't know about you, but I feel like you lose a game 6-0, 7-0, you shrug it off, say, all right, well, it didn't really matter. When you lose a game 1-0, it would not have taken much for them to pull this one out. That, to me, is particularly annoying because it just would have taken a couple more quality at-bats. It doesn't even take a good offensive night. Just a couple quality at-bats in the right moments, and you could actually have won this game.
The Nats scored 16 runs over their first 2 games in the 3-game series against the Reds at Nationals Park earlier this week. A 10-8 win on Monday evening, a 6-1 win on Tuesday evening. And since then, back-to-back shutout losses. In terms of this game on Friday night, The Nats in this game, no runs, just 3 hits, 1 walk, 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position. Dalen Lyle, he is the Nats starting right fielder and number 7 batter, 2 for 3 with a double, a single, and a stolen base. The only Nat with more than 1 hit in the game. The Nats did have 2 doubles to go with a single. James Wood, he had that really good game in Game 1 against the Reds, but since then has not done much, and so his July continues to be underwhelming. Wood on Friday night as the Nats starting left fielder and number 2 batter, 0 for 4 with 3 more strikeouts, dropping his OPS for this month to just 659. And CJ Abrams, we have not talked much about him slumping in the month of July. Abrams on Friday night as the Nats starting shortstop and number 1 batter, 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, dropping his OPS for this month to 596. As much as we've talked about Wood not having a great July, Abrams' July actually has been worse.
Well, it's hard to score runs and to win games when your 2 best hitters are not producing, and we're certainly seeing that right now. It's unfortunate that would happen at this time, and we can go into why that may be and try to read minds or guess some things. I do feel like overall, maybe not just with those 2, but just overall, as the team has reached this point in the season where it's kind of becoming a lost cause in terms of 2025, and we know the changes that were made, and we know that there are more changes to come at the end of the season, it can be a little hard to get yourself going for these games. That's not an excuse. You've got to be a professional. You've got to still find ways to be motivated when you go out there, whether it's for the team or whether it's even just for yourself. And again, I don't know that that's what's going on through their minds, but I could understand why that might be the case for a lot of these guys right now, given the way they've played overall, the way they've struggled, the way that this summer has gone to this point. Well, as we've pointed out, there's a lot of baseball still to go. You can't be looking at the finish line yet. There's a lot to be played. There's still a lot of good that can be done. And even if that just means on an individual level for guys like CJ Abrams and James Wood, go out there and do it. Turn this into a good season for yourself personally, even if it's not a good season for the team.
Especially with Abrams, given the Jekyll and Hyde nature of his 2024 season. You don't want to see him go into some prolonged slump. You want this to end up being a really good season for him. It so far has been. This has not been a good month. Let's just have this be a bad month. Let's not go back to what was the case with him last season. As the season went on, his season unraveled in a lot of ways. Cannot have that here. We've had enough negatives with the Nats this season. You referenced the change that we have seen July 6th, the firings of Mike Rizzo and Davey Martinez. Not to reignite the Darnell Coles conversation, but the fact that we already have had the major change with Rizzo and Davey being fired, does that immunize Darnell Coles from being fired over the course of the rest of this season? Or do you think the hitting coach being fired, even with the manager already being fired, is a possibility as this season goes on?
It's a good question. I never really thought of it in those terms. Would it make much difference? As we've discussed, the entire coaching staff at this point has to feel like lame ducks. I think they know the situation. Now, there's 1 or 2 guys with some ties to the organization that you could see sticking around, whether in the same role or in a different role. But for the most part, these guys are going to be gone. There's going to be a new manager next year. They're going to hire their own staff, you would think. And so for all of them, it's a weird position to be in. I think the weird thing about it as well, we never really got into this, is how often do you see a manager fired in season without there having already been some other changes prior to that? I remember, Manny Acta was fired at the All-Star break in 2009. They had already fired the pitching coach, Randy St. Clair, a little bit before that, maybe a month or 2 before that. Very often you make that first move with the coach, 1 or 2 members of the coaching staff, or even the season going into it. And then, okay, well, there's one more move to make, and that's the manager. And in this case, they retained the whole coaching staff, as we've discussed, and then fired the manager and the GM without touching anybody else. It is a strange position to be in. I don't know at this stage what you're really accomplishing with that if you don't know that you have somebody else to step in and take on that job, especially when the interim manager, I don't think, is going to have like his guy sitting around. He was promoted himself from bench coach. So I think it's an awkward and weird position to be in. My guess is that they wouldn't make a move like that at this point, but who knows? It's been such a strange year. Things have happened sort of backwards in a lot of ways, that maybe there are future changes to come that don't necessarily happen in the order that we would normally be accustomed to seeing them happen.
Yeah, I think strange is the operative word here. Who knows what to expect as things go forward? But with a little more than 2 months left in the season, you would think that we're done with a major change in terms of in-season change, but who knows? Lots could still happen.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
The McDonald's Snack Wrap is back. You brought it back. Ranch Snack Wrap. Spicy Snack Wrap. You broke the internet for a snack. Snack Wrap is back. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Wallner walks to a lead from third. Lee from first. Gore kicks and delivers. Swing and a line drive to left. James Wood right there makes the catch. Runner tagging coming down the line. The throw will be up the line and not in time. It's a sacrifice fly and a run batted in for Byron Buxton as Matt Wallner scores. Brooks Lee holding it first. It's the Twins 1 and the Nationals 0.
So the Nats starting pitcher in this 1-0 loss at the Twins on Friday night was MacKenzie Gore. He was coming off a really bad outing. Remember, Gore in his last outing got ripped. The Nats 8-1 loss to the San Diego Padres at Nationals Park this past Sunday afternoon. 8 runs in 2 1/3 innings. Gore on Friday night was a lot better, though with a caveat. 1 run in 5 innings, despite issuing a whopping 6 walks and 2 wild pitches. He just could not find the strike zone for so much of this game, but he only gave up the 1 run. He only gave up 1 hit, which was a single, and he did record 4 strikeouts, but he, over his mere 5 innings, threw 101 pitches, just 55 strikes versus 46 balls. Gore in the bottom of the 5th allowed a run without giving up a hit. He in the inning issued back-to-back 1-out walks, sandwiched around a wild pitch, and gave up a 1-out RBI sac fly for the game's only run. A 1-0 Twins lead. Gore had just 1 clean inning, which was the bottom of the 3rd. What'd you make of MacKenzie Gore's outing?
I think this is one of those games where he probably should have given up more than the 1 run and got away with it. Now, the Twins were not making good contact off him, but he was not putting the ball over the plate nearly enough. Really high pitch counts, long at-bats, unable to put guys away. And I guess some credit to the Twins for battling him and dragging some of those at-bats out and waiting for those walks to happen. But as MacKenzie was describing it himself, he felt like his pitch sequencing was off. And not just in this game, he feels like it's been off for a little while now, which I thought was interesting, essentially saying that he's not throwing the right pitches in the right times, and that's adding pitches to at-bats. It's prolonging things. It's not allowing him to finish guys off in 3 or 4 pitches as you'd like to do.
Yeah, we're better than that. So, look, I feel good. I shouldn't be walking at many people. It's not like I feel off or anything.
And that's how you end up with a pitch count of 101 after 5. Yes, the bottom line, the name of the game is preventing runs, but it does matter how you got there. And yes, 1 run in 5 innings is great, but to do that with 6 walks and 101 pitches, sure, with a little offensive support, we would talk about him getting the win in this game. But MacKenzie Gore is the kind of pitcher who expects more of himself, and I think we all should expect more of him as well, that it's not just the run prevention, but how you got there. And the way he got there in this case really was not anywhere close to his best.
It's crazy the extent to which the Nats do not score runs when MacKenzie Gore pitches, but that pitch sequencing thing is interesting. Keibert Ruiz has been out for a little while here. Gore saying that his pitch sequencing has been off lately. Do you think that was a reference at all to his battery mate and that maybe things with Riley Adams are not as good as they were with Keibert Ruiz?
So the thought crossed my mind, but then the more I think about it, if you've ever watched, you can see MacKenzie Gore wears a pitch comm on his belt by his hip. He calls most of his own pitches, I believe. So if he's upset about the pitch sequencing, I don't think that's coming from the catcher. I think that's him deciding in the moment what to throw. Now, I don't know what the back and forth communication is. Maybe one guy is signaling for something. He's shaking him off, offering up something else, or vice versa. His struggles somewhat coexist with when Keibert Ruiz first got hurt, although not entirely. One of his best starts was that game in San Diego when he lost 1-0 to Nick Pivetta, and that was Riley Adams catching right after Keibert Ruiz suffered the first concussion. I do know that he's more comfortable working with Adams than Drew Millis. I think trusting a guy who's been a little bit more in the league, having a little better sense of things than Millis, who's still a rookie. But I don't know necessarily that he's alluding to the catcher with that. I think it's more he himself or in their pre-planning for a game of what they want to throw when. I think he probably feels like he's not setting himself up to throw the pitches that he wants to in those kind of situations.
The other thing, and we talked about this after Gore's last outing, I believe, is that the strikeouts have slowed down. Now, he in this game had 4 strikeouts in 5 innings. That's not terrible. But I go back to May. MacKenzie Gore in May had 42 strikeouts in just 27 and a third innings. He was on fire in terms of generating strikeouts, and he since then has averaged fewer than 1 strikeout per inning. And by MacKenzie Gore standards this season, that is a lessening of what he had been doing. Remember, he for the longest time was number 1 in the majors in strikeout rate for this regular season. You look at him in this month of July, 15 strikeouts over 18 and 2/3 innings. And so batters have adjusted to where the strikeout is not as much a part of what MacKenzie Gore is doing right now.
And I think that ties in with what he's talking about here in that he's not giving himself the best chance to put away hitters. And if he gets to 2 strikes, he's either predictable or isn't throwing what he thinks he should be throwing to try to put guys away. So I think that's part of the equation for this. And we know the stuff can be incredibly good. We know especially the breaking balls. So many of his strikeouts in the first half of the year were coming on breaking balls. And maybe he feels like hitters are ready for that, or he's not commanding it. He is bouncing a lot of curveballs in the dirt, it feels like right now. Just not as crisp, as sharp with his stuff. And I think that leads to the lack of strikeouts. And, what he was doing early on when he was really good, even with the high strikeout totals, he was giving them 6 innings pretty consistently. So it's not like the high strikeouts were leading to high pitch counts. You're starting now to see these super high pitch counts, not because of strikeouts, but because of long at-bats, walks, hitters dragging things out, and him not being able to put hitters away the way that he did in the first half. So I think it's something, this isn't quite to the extent of what he went through last summer when he took that big downturn, but it's kind of headed towards that direction. And what you'd love to see now is, can he get himself out of it the way he did last year? And more importantly, can he limit this one to a much shorter time frame than what we saw last week when it was 6 weeks that he was really in a bad place for 6 weeks before he figured it out. You hope he can get it together before it ever gets to that point.
The Nats bullpen in this 1-0 loss at the Twins on Friday night was good. 4 Nats relievers combined for 3 scoreless innings. Cole Henry tossed 2/3 of a scoreless inning, though he in the bottom of the 6th faced 5 batters, got just 2 outs. He gave up a single and a double and issued a hit by pitch. But Connor Pilkington, another impressive outing, serving as a fireman in this game. He faced 1 batter and got 1 out. Heck, he threw just 2 pitches and got the 1 out. He came into the game in the bottom of the 6th with the bases loaded, 2 outs, and the Nats down 1-0. And Pilkington induced a flyout by Matt Wallner for the 3rd out. Then Luis Garcia tossed a perfect bottom of the 7th, and Jose A. Ferrer tossed a perfect bottom of the 8th. I think the 2 things that most stand out here, first of all, Pilkington, who's looked really good so far, but Garcia has looked really good so far, too. And Garcia is a flamethrower right now. His velocity on Friday night was outstanding.
His final pitch was 100.6 miles an hour. And I didn't have time to look this up, but I'm trying to remember the last Nationals pitcher that did that hit triple digits. If Ferrer can get close, maybe he's hit 100 a few times, but there have been very few of these guys in their history, and certainly in recent years, who have the ability to hit triple digits like that. We'll see where this all goes. As some people were already saying, hey, maybe the Nats are going to be able to trade Luis Garcia here in the next week or so and turn a July acquisition into a trade chip potentially. We'll see how that all goes, but good for him that he's figured this thing out and absolutely throwing gas. And this is a very different bullpen than we saw for much of the year. There's some very different names. Some of them are actually pitching quite well. And in Pilkington's case, third appearance in 4 days. So if you're Miguel Cairo, you're not worried about burning this guy's arm up. I guess if you're Cairo, you know you're not here for the long term either. Pilkington isn't some kind of top prospect. Hey, kid, take the ball, go out there and pitch as much as you can for us, and we'll see where it takes us.
Well, the amazing thing about Luis Garcia, this is his age 38 season. We're not talking about some guy in his early or mid-20s who's a rising reliever and, he's got a fresh arm and he can throw 100. Like, this guy is a veteran approaching 40 and he's still touching 100. That really is something. I had this thought on Friday. If the Nats trade Kyle Finnegan, who do you think is most likely to serve as their closer? I know we had talked about Cole Henry, but he's not in a particularly good place right now. Who do you think that person would be?
Yeah, there was a point earlier in the year that I thought Henry looked like the guy, but he has not been the same guy since. I might have said Brad Lord, but he's now in the rotation. I would guess it boils down to who they don't trade at the deadline, whether it's a Garcia. Andrew Chafin has done it in the past. For other teams. Ferrer has the stuff, but we know how inconsistent he can be. And as a lefty, you don't necessarily think of those guys as closers. I would guess it turns into a matchup situation, lefty or righty, depending on who you're facing. But right now, if Kyle Finnegan was traded before Saturday's game and they have a lead going to the ninth, I would think it's probably Garcia against righties and either Ferrer or Chafin against lefties. And that's a pretty wild thing to consider if a few weeks ago, never in a million years would you be talking in those kind of terms.
The McDonald's snack wrap is back. You brought it back. Ranch snack wrap. Spicy snack wrap. You broke the internet. For a snack. Snack wrap is back. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
See how he react the next day or when he take a little time off, between at bat, and it's just like a simulation of getting at bat, sitting down, just to see how his back and oblique react to it. But it's coming close to where we're gonna send him to play some real games.
All right, Dylan Cruz. What is going on with outfielder Dylan Cruz? So he right now is on the 60-day injured list. He has been out since the Nats on May 21st announced having put him on the 10-day injured list with a left oblique strain. He still has not started a minor league rehab assignment, but he is with the Nats in Minnesota. Do we have a sense of what his status is and why he is with the big league team right now as opposed to being on a minor league rehab assignment?
I can tell you that when I walked into the clubhouse Friday afternoon and saw a locker with the number 3 over it, I was kind of disappointed. I'm sure a lot of fans are disappointed. Normally you'd say, oh, hey, you want your best players to be with the team. No, not right now. You want this guy to be playing in games in Rochester and Harrisburg and Fredericksburg, wherever it might be. And it has not happened yet. The good news, he's doing everything. I've watched him. He's taking full BP, full defensive drills, base running. He is going through all the motions just like anybody else who's on the active roster right now. He also has started taking some simulated at-bats in the cage kind of on his own to get a sense of facing live hitters again. Why isn't he playing in minor league games? I don't have a good answer for that. I have not been given a good answer for that, except to say that everybody keeps saying he's close. He's close. Well, okay. We're at the 9-week mark now since he suffered the oblique injury. For what it's worth, I look back, Andres Chaparro, when he suffered his oblique strain late in spring training, he started his rehab assignment at the 10-week mark. So Cruz is actually still ahead of him by a few days. Now, no two injuries are the exact same, so you can't say that that's an exact blueprint for how it's going to go. I'd like to believe he's with the team this weekend, and then they send him out next week while the team goes on to Houston and he goes off to play in some games. But I don't know at this point until he does it. That's that. The thing that strikes me, and I don't know if we've really discussed this or noted this, how much better the Nationals have been this year when Dylan Crews plays. Now, I know there's a lot of other factors in this, but here's the team's record when Dylan Crews is in the lineup versus not in the lineup. When he's in the lineup, they're 22-23, one game under 500. When he's not in the lineup, they're 19-39, 20 games under 500. Again, a lot of other factors. I'm not trying to claim that he himself is responsible for all that, but he does make them a better team. And they have missed him a lot. And you would think, as long as there's no fear of him re-injuring himself, and as far as I can tell, they're not holding him back in any way in what he's doing pregame, you would think that you'd like to have this guy back in your lineup for as much of the rest of the season as possible. And they're very much slow playing this right now.
Well, you think about it, he went out in essentially late May. May 21st was when he got put on a 10-day IL. And of course, it was with the start of June that the swoon began. So him going out preceded by not very much the Nats season going down the downward spiral. From a psychological standpoint, it would mean so much for Dylan Crews to come back and play well the rest of this season. I think that's been one of the real negatives to this season. Crews, in terms of the results, just has not had a very good season. Some of the process stats are good, but the result stats are not good. And he now has missed a lot of time with this injury. And so you do start to worry about this potentially being a lost season for Dylan Crews. We're not at that point yet, but, we are on that path. So he needs to come back here, and hopefully he's back soon. But what would be the point of him being with the team in Minnesota? Like, is this just for morale purposes, or why would he be with the team right now?
Well, because he can do more baseball activity here, as opposed to being back in D.C. just working out with a trainer. If he's able to take BP and face live pitching and do all the defensive drills, then you'd rather have him do that with all the big leaguers and the coaches and the trainers who are with the team every day, even on the road. So I think it's that. You stay back if you're not doing any of that kind of stuff yet, if you're that far away. The strange part of it is you would think he's now at a point where he can do everything and should be able to play in games, and so you send him out to the minor leagues. I understand why he's not in D.C. on his own. It just seems like if he can do what he's doing with the team, then he should be able to now play at least a couple innings in a game in the minors. But maybe they just want to keep it as controlled as possible and not risk, if he's playing right field in a minor league game and he goes to dive for a line drive or has to run the bases and slide awkwardly, that something could happen. But, one of these days he's got to do that. And if the feeling is that the injury is not really there anymore and there isn't a fear of re-aggravating it, then I'm not sure what the point is in holding off any longer.
Man, these oblique strains are the worst. You get an oblique strain and it's like minimum 2 months, it feels like. You rather sprain an ankle, you rather hurt a hamstring. These oblique strains linger like nothing else, it feels like, when it comes to injuries in sports. All right, the Nats now have signed each of the team's top 10 picks in the 2025 MLB draft. The latest to sign and the last to sign out of that group, outfielder Ethan Petry, who the Nats took out of the University of South Carolina in the second round of the draft. And the Nats, in signing Petry, did go over slot, as you and others have reported. And the Nats now have gone over their total slot pool for this year's draft. And so I do think this is worth noting and highlighting because fair is fair. The Nats took some heat when they took Eli Willits with the number 1 overall pick because there were people who said that the Nats cheaped out and that they took Willits because they figured they could sign him for below slot value and that was appealing to the Lerner ownership group. Not to sit here and throw bouquets at ownership, okay, but this was part of an MLB draft strategy that we talked about where you go under slot value with the number 1 overall pick in order to go over slot values with multiple other picks later in the draft. And it turns out that the Nats, in fact, have done that. And I think it's worth pointing that out.
And also worth pointing out that they even went above and beyond because the total draft pool that they're allotted for their first 10 picks for this year was $16.5 million and some change after that. And they went over that number by my count, 17.3, almost $17.4 million. Now, you're allowed to do that if you do it, it's like the luxury tax with your payroll. You pay a tax on it. And so they went about 4.6% over their total draft pool. You pay a 75% tax on the overage. So by my very rudimentary math skills, I've got them not just paying about $767,000 over the pool, but an additional $575,000 in taxes on it. So you're talking $1.3 million in the end that they are spending beyond the total draft pool that they were given. The interesting thing to me, I figured that Petry, the number 2 pick, was the last one to sign because he was the one college pick out of all those. And they were going to sign all the other high school guys above slot and then figure out, well, here's how much we have left. That's all we can offer Petry. Tough luck. Sorry, you're a college kid. You got no other options. You're just going to have to accept it. And I don't know the nature of the negotiations, but he wound up getting over slot, $2.09 million. The slot value was $1.98. That's what lifted them up over the total number. So whether that was him holding out for more or whether they intended all along to go over slot with him, they wound up, yes, they went $3 million under slot on the number 1 pick, Willits, but they went over slot on picks 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's going to be years till we know how this all works out, if it was worth it. But clearly there was a strategy. They stuck with it. They believed that this was the right strategy for them. And it actually cost them more money than if they'd just gone by the book and given everybody what their designated slot value would have been.
Yeah, so the Nats spent some money in terms of these draft picks. And in the case of their 4th round pick, the New York high school pitcher, Miguel Sema Jr., we noted this at the time. The Nats went nearly triple the slot value in that signing. He got $2 million where the slot value was, I think, a little more than $600,000. The Nats ended up benefiting big time from what Willits ended up signing for, $8.2 million, well below that slot value of $11.0759 million. So I do think there's a lot of sense and logic and intellect behind this strategy. Like you said, I mean, we don't know if this is going to work out. I mean, ultimately, you have to pick guys who end up panning out. We understand that. But, you know, you underspend in the first round in order to overspend in later rounds. You can get some really good value that way.
Well, and as we've discussed so many times here since we started the podcast, yes, they have struggled getting their first round picks, turning them into good big leaguers, but they've really struggled with their second and third and fourth beyond round picks in just turning them into any kind of quality big leaguer. They haven't had anybody from that mix who has totaled more than 4 WAR for them since, I think, Michael A. Taylor, who was drafted in 2009 as a non-first round pick. So again, it's going to be years till we know, but you don't just win in the big leagues with first round picks. You have to be good enough to develop not star players, but just quality major leaguers in the second round, third round, fourth round, and beyond. And at least in the way they drafted and then the money they spent, it suggests to me that they are keenly aware of that and are trying to make sure that the class of 2025 isn't just known for Eli Willits, but that it could be known for multiple players reaching the big leagues and becoming good quality players for them.
Yeah, good draft process here by Nats interim GM Mike DeBartolo. Game 2 for the Nats at the Twins Saturday night at 7:10. Mitchell Parker will be the Nats starting pitcher. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. Hit us up on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. And you can email the show, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Window Nation. Don't miss Window Nation's biggest deal of the year. The deadline to get 50% off all window styles is the same as the MLB trade deadline this Thursday, July 31st. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Petry lifts that deep to right. Teal back to the track, to the wall, and it's gone! A home run for Ethan Petry.
The McDonald's snack wrap is back. You brought it back. Ranch snack wrap. Spicy snack wrap. You broke the internet. For a snack. Snack wrap is back. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.